If I recall correctly, it was about a year ago that the idea of having a caravan and spending some quality time with nature came into my head. I was passing a second-hand caravan sales place one day and decided to stop and look at what was on offer. I fancied several of the little caravans I saw, but on checking my garage height when I got home, I realized the idea would have to be scrapped. The nagging persisted, and in Googling, I discovered there is a range of caravans called teardrops. These caravans are so small that in order to get into the double bed, you need a door on each side, roughly in the pillar position. While researching teardrops, I came across the Bush Larper range of caravans and excitement in realizing they were made about 3 kilometers from home. I duly paid a visit to the factory, but disappointment at the price and height. Still no fit. The salesman attending to me suggested I go up the road to Unipod toy haulers who made caravans to specification. The game was on again, and so concept became a project. I have had such fun from this project, and that has not yet ended. The whole trip was made possible by my friend Ron from Escort, offering to come via Pretoria to travel in convoy with Feisty and I to fetch his caravan in Hoedspruit and spend a few days in the Kruger Park, and then return home in convoy. Ron knew about my undertaking to Sam that I would try and not travel with Feisty alone and would seek a companion or travel in convoy with someone else. Ron's offer was too good to not eagerly grab. Ron and his friend Louis, whom I'd never met, arrived during the afternoon of the 13th of November and immediately threw themselves into helping me pack Feisty for our trip. Feisty finally arrived around midday on the 13th of November, and just before 9 o'clock on the 14th of November we set out on our maiden trip together to Hoedspruit via Polokwane. And so it came to be that we set out early on the morning of the 14th, Louis driving their car and Ron accompanying me in my car. Towing was not an art I was well versed in, and was thankful to have an experienced tower alongside me. To those who've never towed before, the experience can be somewhat disconcerting until the art is mastered. Early on, you are made aware of this weight behind you, pushing and pulling you unexpectedly. For various reasons, we arrived at Ron's friend's, that was to pick up his caravan, on the late side, and after having the insisted upon beer, we set out for our destination, a camping ground at Swadini on the Blyde River just below the Blydepoort Dam. We arrived after dark, and I was subjected to my first baptism of fire in the gentle art of camping by having to set up camp in the dark. What fun, but I qualified for the t-shirt. We proceeded to Open Gate and then a leisurely drive to Satara. A new trick I've learnt in the Kruger Park: where campsites are not allocated, is to head straight to the campsite and claim a site by setting up camp or leaving sufficient belongings on the site and then going to reception to do the paperwork. After duly selecting a suitable site and getting some reversing practice in with Feisty, having gone down a dead end, we started setting up camp. The temperature was pushing 41 degrees. I unhitched Feisty and was maneuvering into position with the movers, glorious movers, when suddenly the jockey wheel collapsed. I had not tightened the lock nut sufficiently. Feisty did not come with a jack. The new caravans have an ingenious system of changing the van's wheels by using the stays and the jockey wheel. Now, with the jockey wheel out of commission, that was not even a path to consider. Louis came to the rescue by asking if I had a car jack. The car's scissor jack did the trick, and with the integrity of the jockey wheel re-established, I was able to place Feisty on a tikkie at the push of a button. Satara's campsite has few large trees, so Feisty stood proudly out in the sun with the awning deployed. The air conditioner and ice maker did not know what was about to hit them. Next day, Ron and Louis were away washing dishes, and I was at the camp keeping an eye on the two caravans, when suddenly the wind came up and was gusting strongly. Fortunately, I put in the poles to Feisty's canopy. The manufacturers say it can be used without poles except in wind. Well, talk about a cat on a hot tin roof. The first to pop was a cross pole on Ron's caravan. I was just replacing that when two poles on Feisty went. I was clutching sails, poles and awnings left, right and centre, fearing that I would make like Superman in his up, and away command. I began to wish for Louis and Ron's return. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, they had completed the dishes, but not having paid sufficient attention to how they got to where they were reluctantly forced into an extensive tour of Satara's campsite, up and down and across, and eventually arrived back at our campsite half an hour later, with Ron complaining about how carried dishes seemed to increase in weight with time. I was still replacing poles and tightening guy ropes. I think I earned another T-shirt in the baptism of fire in the gentle art of camping. I like the rates for campsites in the K&P. Sites are for a minimum of 2 persons and amount to 400 Rand per night. When pensioner rates apply, usually Sunday to Thursday nights, the rate for 2 is 240 Rand per night. On the morning of the 19th, we broke camp at Satara and proceeded on our way to Lower Sabie. When we were breaking camp at Swadini, I received a message from Judy, my sister, saying, "Make sure you fill up the tank before going into Lower Sabie." I was puzzled, but later found out that the garage at Lower Sabie was taken out by lightning in the storm we had seen at Swadini. We arrived at Lower Sabie, and Ron and Louis did the usual trick of finding suitable sites and setting up camp before reporting to reception. Because Feisty does not carry wash-up nor ablution facilities, it is easier to be close to the provided amenities. All K&P campsites have electrical and water points. One of Feisty's essential requirements is 230-volt power, as no solar power is carried. The fridge freezer is a 230 12-volt either-or setup, switching between what is available automatically. All lighting is LED 12-volt, selectable white, cool or amber, and the movers work off the 12-volt system too. All kitchen appliances and the aircon require 230-volt, or I'm afraid it's cold supper. I have a small gas cooker which can be carried for emergencies. Feisty's kitchen consists of an induction plate, a microwave, an air fryer, a pressure cooker, and an ice maker. Remember, I do not pry, the main reason for the strange collection. In a few hours of setting up camp at Lower Sabie, it started raining, and it rained intermittently the whole time we were at Lower Sabie. Game viewing was not bad, but not as good as in the sunshine. We did see 2 cheetah near Crocodile Bridge. I was later amazed to learn how rare cheetah sighting can be. Apparently there are roughly 2,000 leopard in the park, but only about 240 cheetah. A lesson learned was having many wiping cloths, a broom, and a short-handled mop. On this trip, I only had a dishcloth and ended up using it to wipe mud off the floor and the steps. The dishes lost out. Thank goodness for Louis' dishcloths. The time eventually arrived for us to break camp, and it was pouring with rain. There was nothing that could be done but to accept being totally wet and full of mud. I was squelching in about 60 millimeters of mud. Don't know if I will ever get to revive my shoes properly. The most difficult thing for me was stowing the canopy, especially in the rain. I definitely need help in doing this task. Ron and Louis kindly obliged. The next most difficult thing was lifting the thoroughly muddied 2 ground sheets and temporarily stowing them in the wood rack on top of the nose cone before tying them down with bungee straps. On the way to Swadini, on the road from Hoedspruit to the Strydom Tunnel, just before the turn-off to Swadini, we suddenly heard an alarming bang. Ron said, "What was that?" I said, "A pothole." I did not see it, but that is all it could have been. We negotiated the turn, and then a hurried look at my phone, at the tire pressure and temperature monitors I had fitted to the car and van. The pressures were holding, so with much relief, we continued, and I could not find any damage the next morning when I checked in daylight. Some 12 days later, I noticed a bubble on the front tire. After a check with the tire people, yes, that pothole is going to cost me a replacement of one of the new tires I had fitted shortly before our trip. The rear tire survived, and I will have Feisty checked next week. I suppose I towed Feisty for a distance of nearly 1,500 kilometers in a short space of time, and think this must qualify me for a newbie's towing t-shirt in the baptism of fire in the gentle art of camping. The main lesson learned is to keep the revs up on the car by not being shy to use the gears. As far as petrol consumption while towing is concerned, towing Feisty doubled my consumption. With the price of petrol at record levels, this means that on long trips the cost of petrol is going to play a significant role. The return trip went well, and the rain gradually cleared as we made our way westward. During the rain, I kept losing the picture from the camera on the rear of Feisty. The impression I gained was that it was not waterproof in its housing, and condensation kept fogging up the lens. Feisty is the same width as the car, and the van's wheels track in the car's spoor. This fact means that extended side mirrors are not compulsory, as I can see past Feisty on each side in my car's side mirrors, but it is handy to be able to see approaching and overtaking traffic from the camera. Would I do it again? For sure. I'm looking forward to Feisty's company on many, many more trips. As the experience in the gentle art of camping increases, it can only get better. In closing, I would like to pay tribute and thank Ron and Louis for their jovial company and willing assistance in making this trip possible, and a memorable one for me.